Okay, so now in the next section, we're going to talk about JSON XML or widget API, how you can get at external data and ingest it into the dotCMS. So let's talk about some of those tools. Okay, so the first tool that we're going to talk about is the XML tool. And if we look here at the documentation for the XML tool, what we're doing here is getting this feed right here. So if we take this and we look over here, we've got a catalog from W3 schools, and that catalog pulls some CDs, and the CDs have, title, artist, country, price, year, all as some text here inside of the catalog and the CD. So we'll have to iterate, first parse the XML, get the catalog, then we'll have to parse the children, each of these CDs, and then we'll have to finally parse the text and the fields inside. So we'll use our XML tool here. And here all I'm doing, we're doing in this table here is setting the columns, and then for each CD in, and here's where we're using the My XML tool. And then that's where we're going to do let me start over here. First, we're going to set the XML tool to read from the URL, right? And we'll assign that to My XML. So then we'll get the entire feed, and then we'll have to dive into the catalog, then the CDs, and then get that text field. So once we've got the complete list, then we can say for each CD inside of, once again, My XML tool, and then we'll iterate over the children. So this is how you iterate over the children using the XML tool. So we'll do children iterator here as our method, and then for each for each CD here, then we're going to set the CD XML equals XML tool dot parse. So those are three methods that you need to actually dig into the XML feed, up here. And now we're parsing, each CD, right, which we're setting here. So we're parsing each CD and assigning that to CD XML. And then I'm just doing, if a velocity count is less than or equal to 5, I only want to get 5 and spit them out. Then we're taking that CD XML that we're parsing each CD to go ahead and get the text fields for, and then we're just CD XML and then title, artist, country, and company exactly as they're set here inside of each of these fields. So we'll go ahead and take a look back now at the section we have here on ingesting using the XML tool, and then we'll cover the JSON example. And I've got this XML Parser Vtl, which is pretty much just doing the same thing that we just looked at. It's commented out here on the top, and then down below it's executing. So this is that same XML tool, XML tool.read, and then we've got our table, and then for each CD, so that same exact code that we just looked at. And so we save and publish, and here's just the commented out example here, and then down at the bottom it's actually pulling from the catalog and showing us the title, the artist, the country, the price, and the year, right? So that is our XML tool, and once again, you could read more about it just by searching XML tool in our documentation site, and that works pretty well. We also have in our documentation a JSON tool. So pretty much whenever you're getting fields, it's either going to be XML or JSON. So we're only going to cover those tools, and I think we've got some older deprecated tooling that we're just not going to cover, because everything is going to pretty much XML or JSON. JSON is much easier to handle and read, just because it acts just like velocity. You can iterate over each object that you read in the feed. So here is the basic way that you would grab a URL, a JSON.fetch. You can set a timeout, headers. So there's different ways that you can go ahead and determine, when that's going to fetch again. So whenever the page is reached. So here I'm just going to do a simple json.fetch. I think we've got an example down here. Yeah. So, set results to json.fetch, go grab some URL. You can use something to go ahead and set a timeout if you want. And you're going to iterate it over it just like velocity. And for each show, you could do, in my json.shows. That way you're digging down into the shows that are coming back from your feed, and then iterating over each of those. But I already have an example here on another page inside of ingesting external data. So we go here to the Json tool. Once again, here I'm grabbing data from the New York Times. I had to apply for a little developer key. So let's see if that's the right one with the right key. Yeah. So don't copy my key. So here you can see I'm getting my JSON from the New York Times, and here's my results. And here I'm iterating over each one of these movie reviews. So inside of each of these movie reviews, I've got a display title and a rating, a headline, a summary, a publication date, and we're looking at that, a live feeding from their site, and link. So you'll see that I'll do like results.link.url to be able to get that, just like we do in Velocity with a content map. So it's very, very, very easy to read and to iterate over this content. Here, let me just dig in. I've got it commented out here, but let's just dig into the file. Okay. So what we're doing here is first setting a JSON fetch to that feed, right? That New York Times movie reviews, and setting it to movies after doing the JSON fetch. So then we'll set movie results equals movies.results, because in our feed, right, we need to dig into the results, not any of this up here, right? So movie.results, and there's where our JSON objects are. So, and that's all you have to do, movie.results. Very, very easy. So for each movie in movie.results, then I'm just getting the movie.headline, which is one of the properties we looked at. But I'm going to have to dig a little bit deeper inside of movie.link and then to get the URL, just like we do in Velocity. So very, very easy. And then I'm displaying the movie headline after displaying the link. And then I just said, if the count is, 10 or more, then just break out. So I don't want to get, perpetually a list of more movies than that. So here it is all just executed what was commented out above, and that is how we're getting our movie reviews down here on the bottom, live feed. And so if we click on any of these, we can go right to the movie reviews on the New York Times website, right? And got a Spike Lee movie here, and something about the Vietnam War here. So all coming down live from New York Times Movies Review. So, and that is, we covered preparing dotCMS content to ingest from an external system. Then we covered the two main methodologies that you would use to ingest external data. There is a warning, however. You do want to, if you're really relying on a constant feed of external data like this, what if they change the feed? What if they change the how they present the data? It's much better to talk to our support team and try and get a content hook going, so you can bring something like these movies. You could go ahead and bring them into dotCMS as content, so that you could bring these movies, these images, the article itself. You could go ahead and bring that into dotCMS. You could store it as long as it allowed you to do that. This was maybe internal organization feed. You can bring it into dotCMS, store it, and then that way if somehow your live feed went down, you'd always still have it pulling from dotCMS if you couldn't get the feed. So that's just a little safety warning there. If you're relying on something outside of your server for data displays, it's always the best idea to try and bring it over rather than relying on something off-site that could may or may not actually be displaying the data. And you also, if you are going to, and it's a requirement that you're going to have to pull live from that external system, you don't want to bring it over via content hook, or there's some sort of licensing issue that you may not do that. Then there are ways to go ahead and supply the timeout. You want to make sure that you give it a timeout so that you're not perpetually waiting for the return on the feed. So just make sure that you do those things whenever you are actually here's your URL connection timeout, and you can go ahead and specify that in the Dart marketing config file. So those are some important things to keep in mind, okay, whenever creating feeds that are relying on that external data.